very much, Didi, for your perspective on this China debt trapped issue. Yeah. So to recapitulate, what you said is we shouldn't just take this Silk Road literally. Yeah, it's much larger than that. It's all part of a. It's not just lending money to cash-strapped countries, but it's all part of a grand strategy, really, in a way, like to establish hegemony, and also it's not just we shouldn't just be looking at this in at the tangible aspect of it, but also the intangible aspect, as in spreading ideology, in a way of supporting in order to be able to control later. So thank you very much for this perspective on this issue. Yeah, and now I would like to invite our fourth speaker, Tan Sri Syed Hamid Albar, who was a senior Malaysian government minister in the 1990s and 2000s. He read law at the Inns of Court, London, and was called to the degree of an utter barrister by the Honourable Society of Middle Temple in 1970. As a student in London, Tan Sri Albar set up a club for Malaysian expatriates and students. He has held important portfolios in previous Malaysian governments, having served as the Minister of Defence from 1995 to 1999, Minister for Foreign Affairs from 1999 to 2008, and Minister for Home Affairs from 2008 to 2009. Tan Sri Albar was an MP member from 1990 to 2013, representing the seat of Kota Tinggi, Johor, for the UMNO. He left UMNO in 2018, saying UMNO is no longer the party he once knew, and accused it of caring little, if not at all, for the people. In 2019, he was conferred the Japanese Imperial Decoration Grand Cordon of the Order of the Rising Sun for his contribution to strengthening bilateral relations and promoting friendship between Japan and Malaysia, and to strengthening Japan-ASEAN relations. With that, I would like to invite Tan Sri Albar to this discussion.
Najib, for asking me now to take part in a very interesting webinar discussion. I think I have, the subject is so wide. I think what we have, each one of the module that our distinguished panelists have discussed could be covered separately. I think we tried to cover many aspects, and I look at it in a way. This is how I assessed it. In a way, we have left out our discussion on ASEAN as a victim of the debt threat diplomacy. We have gone into other bigger issues of the Chinese grand plan, of Chinese design, and we have made it into a very ideological debate. And I think I would like to go back to, I think it is the subject of debt diplomacy is not something new. If you look at the overseas aids, all the bilateral relations that we have between former colonialists and its colonies, all involve giving conditionalities for either giving loans or for development. So I think what the Chinese are doing is no different. But what is important here is there a strategic policy? Is there a plan on the part of China? Is China going around the ASEAN countries and identifying the projects, or the projects are being identified by the ASEAN countries themselves? And I think all of us agreed that at present, the instrument or I think the instrument for growth is the infrastructure. ASEAN countries need infrastructure in order to grow. And I think our colonial masters before, they build infrastructure in order to gain from our resources, our natural resources, in order to export and then get the finished products, and they get the added value. I think there has been, there is competition between China, US, and the Western countries. Are we going to be trapped into this debate or competition between US and its allies and China? And I would, I am not this debt threat diplomacy. I don't think there is such. If you look at why Brahma Chellaney originally started the usage of that, it's for branding and creating perception of threats against China. So it was taken up, then it was done by the graduates of Harvard University, then it was taken up by Guardian, it was taken up by New York Times, then the US leaders started to speak. And I think I would not like as an ASEAN countries, because the problem with ASEAN is ASEAN do not have a common policy when we are facing major powers. So just now my friend Dr. Ramon spoke about the overlapping claims. Even on the overlapping claims, the ASEAN countries have got the individual position, and China approached them individually. So we do not have a common position of what we should do, what aspect that there should be commonalities in our agreement with China. So I think China have got excess capacity, China have got excess funding. Like in the case of Malaysia, we wanted to, infrastructure development has been given top priority in our development agenda. So if you go to the commercial banks, it may be very expensive. The government wants to be involved. The only thing I think about it is not, I would put it this way, it would be better for us to look at how China and the other countries, China, I think if you look at the Western countries or the capitalist countries, how have they been able to help us in the development? And if you talk about the good thing about democracy, human rights, I'm very sorry to see that democracy and human rights, even in the Western countries at present, is under threat and under challenge. So what more in ASEAN? ASEAN, the democracy is flawed, is hybrid, and I think we have not changed from the time that we were formed. We're not to interfere with each other's. So I think in that situation, I think we were able, China was able to approach each one of us. And I think Malaysia has benefited, if at all. And we have said that it creates bribes, it creates all kinds of we are worried about governance issue. I think these are the things that we need to improve. We need to learn from the experiences of each other. What type of conditions should we negotiate on our loan? If you look at all the studies that have come out on this debt threat diplomacy, most of the studies say it is maybe overreacting. It is not true. It is China has forgiven more loans than China has taken over strategic assets of the country. So I think in this particular situation, it would be better for us to look at it positively. Do we need funding? Or we need the rhetoric of funding? Do we need human rights? If we talk about human rights, because I think the Western countries, their conditionality was on human rights, democracy, freedom. But they also support regime that do not practice this if it satisfies their national interest. So at the end of it, I do not consider, if you can call it a debt threat diplomacy, I think there is no debt threat, yes. there is a death threat, but it is not a diplomacy. It is not. It would be very silly for China to have it as part of their policy to say that, oh, this is how we want to go about it. So it is. I think it's a very interesting debate. I would say that, you know, China. My experience with China is, you know, when I started engaging China, when China considers itself as a developing country. When we speak to China, they always treat us as another developer and one developing country speaking to another developing country. They do not want to dominate. But China, on becoming a dominant power, a major power now, speaks the same language like any other major powers. And why should we be worried about the branding of Silk Road, whether it's a distortion of history, there is no such thing or not? To me, in any business or any connectivity, the most important thing is how you brand your products, how you brand your interests. And I think in the case of China, they have branded their interests where they want to achieve common prosperity. Oh, this is very good for all countries, developing countries. Look forward to having common prosperity. But what we need to, in the case of ASEAN, I'm going to talk to touch again on ASEAN. ASEAN must have a common platform when dealing with major powers. ASEAN must be able to have, these are the common standards that we want to achieve. I think in the case of Philippines, at the start, I think there was gung-ho about how Philippines is going to deal with China. But Philippines changes because at the end of it, you receive benefit from China and China delivers. When it comes to COVID, we all talk about COVID when we say there is no, I'm a bit worried about this COVID vaccine. We talk about that it doesn't go through our local, you know, medical bodies. But we are all being going to go through the experience of becoming the guinea pigs for the vaccine, because the vaccine have not gone through rigorous testing, and all of us have to use, and we are, and I think the various pharmaceutical companies do not want to take responsibility if anything goes wrong. So I think the term that is to refer to nefarious intention of China, the term that has been applied to lending practices, is similar. What China is doing is similar to what many countries and the international monetary agencies have been doing. And I think, I remember at the initial stage when we wanted to get some Japanese loans or Japanese companies to be involved in our big projects, the Japanese companies came with a package. It's a total package. And I think it's quite common. They come with a total package. And one of the packages that the products that you are going to use for your construction all must come from the country that undertake the contract, they undertake the project, that provide the funding. So what is the difference between what China is doing and what other countries are practicing? So I think these are the things, the creditor, I think what I am saying is, I do not think there is the China intentionally extends excessive credit in order. If you remember, I think all of you remember 1978. See, we take 1978, Japan and China during Deng Xiaoping and the Tanaka. You know, they negotiated for a very big loan, and Japan and China is not friendly to each other anyway. But Japan gave the loan, knowing fully well it is not credit worthy. So I think it's my own view is that credit worthiness is one aspect, but the spin-off is a very important aspect. The development is a very important aspect of what we want to do. China benefited from that. Japan benefited because China imports products from Japan in order to expand their industry and make sure that they are able to develop very fast. So I think there must be it's a question of narrative. What I disagree with this, I like the title because there is a question, like the one that Chatham House did, debunking the myths. You say the myth and all sorts. But I think I like we should be discussing about the narrative. How is the narrative? Aren't we lending ourselves to an ideological differences between, I think, developed countries and developing countries? I'm not in favor of any communist ideology. I believe that the best form of freedom is in democracy. I believe the best system is democracy. But democracy also has got its flaws. How are we tackling the democracy? I think you look at the ASEAN countries. Yes, we have now Aung San Suu Kyi coming for the second time. Yes, China is, getting benefit from the Burma being, or Myanmar having engagement on giving loan and developing new ports. Even there is that what my worry is, we were worried in Sri Lanka that the 99-year lease would be, and this you have to look at it as a strategic move. We say it's geostrategic and all this stuff. We were worried that it will be used by China as a military or their naval. Their naval, they will use it for their navy. But it's not happening. But how do you do if a borrower give a loan, if there is not payable, they have taken that. It gives an opportunity for us to find a way out of that situation. So it is actually, I think there is an argument that some people see as, I think, like what I think all of us in the developed countries as well in developing countries, we are responsible in many ways for diluting our freedom, our democracy, and our human rights. So even just now, Didi mentioned about Africa. The Chinese loans are not a major contributor to debt distress in Africa. So we have to look at both sides. What my concern is, because we want to focus that there is a Chinese intention, therefore everything that the Chinese does and give, we tend not to look at the positive aspect, but we tend to discuss on the negative aspect. I think there should be a more balanced discussion of what it's all about, and I think we have to look critically at the Chinese debt issue, because my worry about, as a former member of the government, my worry is about governance. My worry is not about the debt. If the debt is properly managed, if it brings development, it allows us to have a repayment capacity, then it should be encouraged. But the government, the secrecy, the confidentiality, and governance of it, the possibility of some people getting benefit from it, certain political, it is used for certain political funding. I remember when I was the chairman of the Land Transport Commission. I'm going to end, Najib, soon. So the ECRL, when the ECRL was developed, a lot of issues, like us, we are a commission that plan, that strategize public transport. So when we plan and strategize, we do not get involved in the funding or the political decisions. The funding or the political decisions are made by the government. What I think they should improve is, whenever they want to do that, there should be more transparency. What are the terms that the government, G to G, the negotiation G to G? And I think it's the difficulty with us to deal with the Chinese is because each one of their government-related companies, or so-called their private companies, are all government-related. All are controlled by, I think, by the government. They decide the paradigms, they decide the parameters. But they are themselves competing with each other. So in this competition, we can become the victim of their competition. So I think maybe if you want to look at the Chinese debt trap or the Chinese debt book, I would not use diplomacy, because diplomacy is a good term, too nice a term to associate it with nefarious or ill-intended agenda or policies that a certain country overtake. Let us look at when Joe Biden comes as a president, there's going to be a change of US policy. Let us see how all of us can benefit from coming together, looking that developing countries need money, need funding. And everyone coming to see us to do our high-speed rail, to do fast train. Have we got the repayment capacity to do that? So all will become victim. I think we will become victim if we do not exchange our experiences, our views, in order to ensure that we have the best practices and the best terms that will bring real development that will benefit the people and do not benefit only certain strata of society. So thank you very much for giving me the space to discuss my view. Thank you.